Life in the Leadership Lane. I'm your host, Bruce Waller, where I get to talk to leaders that are making a difference in the workplace and in our community. What did they do to get started, and what are they doing to stay there? And oh my goodness, I have a special guest today. Her name is Kim Kneidel. She is the senior human resources business partner at Pros. She's also certified in organizational development, and I am so excited to have you on the show. Hey, Kim, how you doing?
I'm so good, Bruce. I think I'm more excited though. So
It is always great seeing you. We've known each other for a long time, and I am so excited, just to share your story and really get to know you more. I tell people all the time, every time I get on a podcast, I call it my growth day. So I know I'm going to grow just from our conversation. Hey, so as we get started, I would love for you to just share with our audience, the company you work for is Pros. Share, how do you serve your customers?
Yeah, so I work for a company called Pros. I've been there for, my goodness, it's about 5.5 years now. I'm like, where does the time go? But Pros, I'll keep it really high level and simple. We are a software company. And we do pricing. So if you name the industry, we provide the solutions so companies can do pricing for their customers. So.
Well, I tell you, that is fantastic. We are going to talk leadership today. We're going to talk leadership development today and a whole lot more. And as we get started though, I would love to start with the Kim Kneidel story. I would love for you to share, where did you grow up and how in the world did you get into leadership, in particular in HR?
Yeah, so like many HR professionals, sometimes people fall into the HR profession either by accident or they've, done something and they shift into it. I originally grew up in Miami, although a lot of people I think that I'm from New England because I never stopped talking about New England sports, right? So I know you know that. But I grew up in Miami. I went to college in Miami. And what's crazy about my story is I fell into HR completely by accident while I was in college. So when I say how many years I've been in HR, it's getting a little crazy because I'm like, how can the number be quite that high? And yeah, so but I was working for, what happened was I was working for Macy's while I was in college. And, it was supposed to be a part-time job, going to school and all that kind of stuff. I kept going back to summers and the holidays and my hours were increasing and increasing. And one year I was approached by the management team and they said, hey, you're doing a phenomenal job. How would you like to be part of our executive training program? And I said, that's the program, right? It's like a 1-year program. And at the end, you could potentially be a department manager. And they said, yeah, that's the one. And so I was thinking, what my age was at the time. And I'm like, wow, in a year, I could be a department manager. At the time, Macy's was Macy's Aventura, Florida. They were, I think, the 4th largest volume store, right, on the East Coast. So this is like a big, big store, big deal. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I mean, I wasn't necessarily looking for retail to be my career at the time, but I'm like, okay, great. They said, but look, in the meantime, your semester schedule is a little crazy. So how about instead, for now, you will be our holiday hiring coordinator. And then once we get through the holidays, we'll place you in the program, come January, and you can pick your class schedule, for January and all that. I said, okay, that sounds great. What's a holiday hiring coordinator? I'm like, sounds super. What is it? What will I be doing? And so essentially what the role was exactly what it sounded like, coordinating. This store had such high applicant traffic. I mean, I'm talking, and I know I'm dating myself right now, back in the paper application days, we would run out of applications. We would have foot traffic, I'm telling you, 100, 150 people coming through just nonstop. So we would have these group interviews, kind of get to know you, see what you're looking for type of thing. And I would help coordinate that and help the HR manager. And what happened was about 2 weeks into this, temp assignment, our HR manager ended up going out on a leave of absence. And so all of a sudden I thought, holy moly, like forget like just the holiday coordinator stuff. Like I have to figure out how to do her job. And, at the time, there's one HR manager for per store. And so it was quite the experience because I would call each store. So I wasn't calling the same person 10 times a day. So I'd rotate. And I mean, it was definitely learned by rapid fire, but it was amazing. And I loved it. I loved doing this job. And, the end of the time came and they said, look, turned out the HR manager decided she was just going to go ahead and retire. And they said, what do you want to do? Do you want to stay in HR or do you want to go into the exec trainee program? I'm like, I want to stay in HR. So it was crazy because I was already, pretty far into, from a college standpoint, and I changed my classes, as much as I could, and started taking some, HR courses. And, I will fully admit, like, I just wanted to graduate because I was fortunate enough that I found what I wanted to do. So that's how I got into HR.
That is a fantastic story. Oh my gosh. Okay. I did not know that story. Macy's. Now that's interesting because the whole time you're looking forward to this executive program, and little did you know, it was going to be stalled because you were going to find what you found your purpose, you found your lane. And that's one of the things I do like talking about is when did you know when did you know that? Like, so here you are today, you're a senior HR business partner. So you've been doing this for a while now. As you kind of reflect back on those days, and you thought you knew at the time, you're like, hey, I really like this, which I think is so cool because I didn't realize what I really enjoyed until even later. But was there a time like during the course of your career where you said, you know what, I picked this profession and now I know I love it more than ever because of this?
God, Bruce, that's a great question. There is no doubt I think something that's been a constant for me, when I fell into HR by accident and then realized that I loved it, to today, literally today, one of the constants I think is that feeling of being able to help bring resolution to something, whatever it is, whether it's a conflict or, helping, be part of rolling out an initiative, whatever it is, that feeling of being a part of it and someone saying to you just, hey, thank you so much for getting me through that. For me, I really it was it's a natural thing for me. Like for me, it wasn't such a big deal, but it's interesting, like the impact it can make or what your conversations are with someone, the impact that it has on someone it still drives me. It really does. And I know that sounds so hokey, as I'm saying it out loud, I'm like, geez, that sounds such like a cornball type of answer, but it's true. It really, really is true. It's what energizes me for sure.
There's nothing like being lifted up. There's nothing like somebody saying, hey, because you said this, or because you approach things this way, or because you did something like this, I'm going to be better from that now. I mean, there's just there's nothing like that, is there?
There really isn't. And, it's funny, everyone has, I think, a different mindset of what they feel like they need from a recognition standpoint, right? And, sometimes there's some things that, people define recognition with a title, with compensation, things of that nature, right? Very tangible type of stuff like that. And I know for me and for a lot of people I talk to, that's not the driver, and I get it. Those things are all important, but it's not the driver. It's exactly what you just said. And when someone can make that small comment like it can really light up someone's day. And I mean, even, yesterday I was messaging with a leader, and I so appreciated, he said to me, you have such a good way of putting things, like, because I was helping them draft something, and they were thinking, I was helping them think through what the message would be. And, he wrote, like, you have such a great way. And that comment, he probably doesn't realize, I was on cloud nine for, for the remainder of the day because of that comment, because it just helps validate, like, that's good, because I want to know that. I want to know I'm helping you. My guidance is helpful for you. So
I think that you've also found a way to connect with people, and you get the connection piece, because I think that's a big part of it, is that John Maxwell says it best. He says, everyone communicates, but very few connect. And for somebody to send you a text to say,
yeah.
I appreciate you because of this, that, first of all, that leader, phenomenal, because that leader
Right.
understands the importance of connection as well as you do. And it also allows you to see and feel what that's like, so you can share
Right.
that with that. I want to pivot to this area of as we talk about this, because I think this is really important. And as we talk about this, there probably have been some people in your, in your personal life, in your career, that have helped you along the way. And as you're talking about this, I was actually thinking about the person at Macy's that said, "Hey, you're doing a great job. Do you want to do this?" That tells me that person believed in you.
Right.
And I think that mentors do more than just help. They have this sense of belief like no others. Talk a little bit about the importance of, like, mentors in your career, and that word I use, belief.
Yeah. So, if I have to, and it's funny because you're right, you come across people in life, personal, work related, that help shape you. And you might not realize it. You don't realize it necessarily at the time. And they leave an impact. And sometimes it's not even always not necessarily something that was good. It was maybe even something you learned from that individual that makes you think, that's probably not who I want to emulate. So I'm going to be very intentional, probably not to necessarily be like that person. And so we won't call them out, right? But I mean, it just happens, right? You come across folks like that. If I have to think about who's made the biggest impact in my life in general, and I'm going to try not to get emotional on you, it's my dad. It's both of my parents. I happen to have, I was so blessed with, like, the most amazing parents, came from a loving home, and they were wonderful. And my mom, she's my best friend. People at work, I feel like they know my mom practically because I talk about her all the time. And especially since we've been in this virtual environment, look, hers has been amazing to me, that I've been able to work from her place in Florida and come back and forth, to Houston and Florida. So that part's been a blessing. My father, I would say, was a huge influence for me, because I have never met anyone as resilient as he was. And, like, to his very last day. And, unfortunately passed in November 2019, but, he's with me. I know he's with me every day. And the resilience and his story is incredible, right? I mean, this is someone who, he was an attorney for almost 50 years. He was at a 50-year career. And even when he retired, I mean, he couldn't sit still. He was still looking at stuff, and he was still involved in stuff, and he's still running to courts for stuff. I mean, it was nonstop. But his story is insane to me, because this is a man who, in his college years, was in a car wreck that resulted in his neck being broken in 3 different places. He had multiple doctors, one telling him, if you make it, you're probably going to be blind. I mean, at one point they weren't sure if he was going to make it. And I mean, this is a man that was in traction. I mean, and somehow he made it out of that. and I think he took that experience with him forever. And so, stuff for me that I've come across, in personal or work or whatever, where, geez, it sounds, it's just like, oh God, this is so horrible. And I think stories from him, and I'm like, oh my God, okay, yeah, suck it up. That's a story. This is just a really bad day. And, he just had that connection, you're talking about Bruce. He had that way of connecting and making an impact. And even to this day, since he's passed, I mean, my mom will hear stories about him like, oh, and his name was Louis, oh, when Louis was in the courtroom. And so, the impact he's made on people that he worked with, that he mentored, he would have college, he'd have college students work with him and groom them. And, they became very successful, lawyers and judges. Two, I kid you not, again, I'm going to try to keep it together. Two, when even visiting his gravesite, when my mom and I will go and we'll visit, the gentlemen that work the groundskeepers have come up to my mother and myself to tell us what a great man he was. Just from seeing him, visit the graveside of his family and stuff like that. And it's just, I mean, my mom and I, of course, start bawling because how can we not? And it's like every day I discover the impact my dad made on people. I had no idea that, people you wouldn't even think, you would make an impact on. So I carry that with me. And I hope, if I can be half, the person and make the impact that he's made on me and others, then I'm winning. So.
Oh my gosh. I appreciate you sharing that so much. What a legacy.
Yeah.
Louis, I love
Louis.
that. What a legacy your dad, Louis, made. And I love how you use the word resilient, because if there's ever a time you need to be resilient, it is through the last 18 months that we've been going through this pandemic, and just being resilient, because it has been heavy, hasn't it?
It really has. And it's not just even the pandemic, right, Bruce? I mean, just worlds like colliding. I mean, it's like we're living in the Bermuda Triangle right now, between the pandemic, all of the social issues that, were coming up, and it's impacting, it impacts everyone, and it impacts people in a different way. And, you may or may not relate directly, to certain things that, are going on in the world. But I think, something we all have to remember, right, is to continue to extend grace to everyone on so many, just so many levels. We have to extend grace, have some extra patience, maybe not even count to 10, sometimes count to 20 to 100, like depending on what, what you're faced with. And, just, you have to just remember, like, everyone's entitled. I know, I'm sure there's people like, oh, it's so HR to talk about feelings, but everyone's entitled to feelings. What one may think is ridiculous, the bottom line is, you may be right, you may be wrong. The bottom line is, this is how you made this person feel. Like, just respect the fact that that's how they're feeling. So for them, they're on the receiving end of something. That's how it made them feel. And just, think through it. And, I think just even being able to acknowledge that, that much would go a long way. But yeah, I mean, pivoting has been a very important word in the world for HR, for sure, for everyone. But I know, for all my HR colleagues, I mean, this is stuff, right, that we never would have thought. I know I never would have thought to see this in my lifetime. And so, it's something I think we're all having to figure out together. I don't think anyone has the answers to just on so many things.
I love how you shared extending grace. That And I think that's actually been the key. And I've seen it more than ever in the workplace. And whether it's colleagues that have had to go take care of their parents or their kids or their grandkids, but just being able to look through and have that empathy to say, you know what, I get it. I'm with you. And I think that really, for me, that's really starting to like shape. I mean, I'm, I don't know, I guess late career, but it's starting, like I've had this definition of leadership for so long, but it's really like shaping it and molding it even
Yeah.
more around leadership. I always like to ask my guests, if somebody were to ask you what leadership is, what would you say to that?
You know, I think that the leadership, there's things that leadership isn't
Mm,
also, right? So it's funny how I sometimes approach my thought process of like how I approach answering things like that. Leadership is not necessarily someone needing to be the smartest one in the room,
mm,
right? I think leaders, and more so than ever, right? Leaders today absolutely have to listen. They
mm,
have to listen to the feedback, that's coming through, that's coming through to them. And look, I mean, there's leaders that are in place, and they're in place for a reason, right? And they can be the ultimate decision makers for certain things, right? If we're getting tactical on implementing initiatives and things of that nature. And one of the things I know for myself that has been always important, like for any leader I've ever that I've had tremendous respect for, is I recognize that you may not always think I have the best idea, but if you listen to it and just take it into consideration, that means a ton. I mean, I know it's not just me, it means a ton for me, but I mean, these are things that I hear, from people, within the company I work for, outside the company, just things that you just hear, I think that's important. Like everyone wants a voice, right? Everybody wants a voice. And if you can at least have, express that and have the voice for someone that takes something into consideration, then do it. Now, I think it's super important today in today's world too. There's a level of transparency that I think leaders need to have. And you can't share everything all the time, right? There's going to be things that, at a leader, from a leadership perspective, they're confidential. You don't know all the things going on in the background, and you don't just snap your finger and you come up with a solution. But that collaborative experience, I think that everybody is needing, is essential. I think it's essential. So, I mean, Bruce, you know me well enough to not give you a concise answer. So that was a really roundabout way of maybe throwing a whole bunch of stuff into, this leadership pot, that you can just pick out and grab.
Hey, I was listening. I was listening. That was number one. Listen, and collaborate. Listen, you're right on target. As a matter of fact, I had the CHRO on one of my shows, and he said it really starts with listening, understanding, relating, and then listening some more. And we're not doing that enough. We're just like getting bits and pieces and going. And it's really like pausing. I love how you frame that. It's really about just really focusing in on and connecting from that listening perspective. Hey, I got a question for you. As you told that Macy story, I was going to ask this question: is leadership today what you thought it was going to be whenever you were
Oh
that
gosh.
HR coordinator? I mean,
No, 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 no. First of all, when I fell into HR, I didn't realize that I was, that essentially I could become a psychologist, a therapist, um, the coach. Right. When I first fell into HR, obviously it was much more from a tactical standpoint, and thinking, yikes, I better figure out how to do XYZ so all these new hires also get paid. And, because, those are important things, like people getting paid. And, But no, I mean, as the years, right, as the years have gone by, you know, how I look up to certain leaders and work, you know, and now I get to work with, you know, more leaders than I would have, you know, when I initially fell into HR, is it's very different. And HR, you know, has evolved so much, right? And, you know, I feel like HR is one of those areas where, you know, we seem to reinvent ourselves, right? I mean, even when you think about what HR is called, you know, I mean, my mom likes to always reference, like, I remember when it was called personnel. And by the way, she does not say it in that voice, but, you know, she was like, I remember when it was personnel. It's so confusing. Like, you know, you all have, you know, some places call it human capital, right? There's terms like you know, HR business partners, you know, just people, you know, people and culture. There's so many different nuances within HR, and we're all of it. Like we are all of it. So I understand why when companies, you know, change up human capital, people and culture, human resources, and I've been on all of those, right? I didn't like just to make those up. Like literally, companies I've worked at, that's what we were called. So,
You're right on target. Oh my gosh, yeah. I love how you said that though. HR continues to evolve, continues to innovate, really reinvent the position, the practitioner, and what they're doing. Because yeah, I mean, I'm anxious to see where it goes. I think it's going in a good direction. You know, one of the things I like to also ask is like, what area you enjoy, like HR, there's a lot of hats, right? You started out as
yeah.
an HR coordinator. I mean, there's recruiting, there's employee relations, there's development. And I know you've spent a lot of time, and you obviously you have a certification in organizational development. What area do you enjoy most?
So, you know, when people think employee relations, because I've been asked in the past, like, you know, I worked somewhere where that's all I did, right? For 4 years, I did employee relations. And so, you know, it's one of those, my God, like, how do you focus on employee relations every single day? I mean, you know, you're probably not getting a lot of good news brought to you, right? You're tackling performance management stuff, you're doing investigations, you know, like some people would think that's the icky side. And yes, that's an HR technical term that, you know, icky. And it's funny, there are still aspects though of employee relations where if I can help get to a resolution, then that's great, right? I want to be able to go into something and objectively look at it and try to resolve it. And, you know, is it the most, you know, pleasant subjects that, you know, you're looking at? No, not really. But again, it's that maybe it's something, you know, as I'm saying it out loud, maybe it's like a closure thing for me. Like if I'm able to bring closure to that, you know, that resolution to, you know, to problem solving something. There's no doubt though, this is a recent revelation for myself. From anything I can do to help grow, you know, be part of someone's growth and development is so exciting. And it's incredible when I see, and I guess this is just, Grace, I guess this is just what happens as you get older too. You know, it blows my mind when I see, you know, certain folks that I remember when, you know, we recruited them and they were like right out of school, right out of college. And now are, you know, since I was in the public accounting, you know, industry for a bit, you know, as HR, you know, I'm seeing them make partner today, and it's really cool. It's really incredible. I'm certainly not taking credit. I promise I'm not taking credit for being, you know, a part of that. But if, you know, again, anything that I was ever able to share with them, or again, from providing guidance, or, hey, how do I approach so-and-so? Like, I want to go after this role. How do I do that? You know, we currently at Pros, I mean, we talk about career pathing a lot. And, you know, I'm fortunate that we have a company where we put that out there. we like, it's probably out there for all of our employees to see what each position has, from a competency standpoint, and you get to look at that and you get to make those decisions on, maybe I want my career to go from a, professional services route to sales. And it's not, it doesn't require, oh, you have to wait, X number of years to be able to do that, or we don't make changes like that. We do, right? So it's very fluid. And so again, like that coaching, the counseling, the guidance, anything I could do to help grow someone's career, it makes me, again, if there has to be some validation for yourself and what you do in life, is my feeling, right? So I don't mean to make it sound like a selfish thing, but it's what drives me. And if I can help someone get to where they want to go, then, help them find their lane.
I love that. I love how you reference find your lane. I love that. Wow, that's interesting, because you just said that's what drives you.
Mhm.
And I find it fascinating. Number one, that what drives you. That's so important. But to be able to articulate that, I could feel just now when you were telling me that, I could feel like when you're helping someone, and it could just be through a conversation more than anything, and
Yeah.
you see them progress in their role in the workplace, in the community, wherever, whatever that role is, it's so fulfilling, isn't it?
It really, it really, it is. And, again, I feel like the success of those around me, makes me feel like there is an element where it makes me feel, like I said, it makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I'm a part of that. Recently, look, the pandemic last year, threw everyone for a loop, right? Again, on so many levels.
Of
And,
course.
there were certain things that companies had to pause. I mean, my gosh, there were companies that were having to do reduction in forces, things like that. I happen to be very fortunate. I worked for a company that we didn't do anything like that. We were intentional in looking at certain things we needed to maybe dial back, rebalance, things of that nature. Certain things maybe on hold, like we weren't able to do, the normal amount of promotions and stuff that we would normally do in a regular year. And for the groups that I happen to support, recently we were able to do that, right? And first of all, it was so nice to just have sort of like a normal, more of a normal feeling, like, okay, things are maybe going back a little bit more to normal, like being able to do stuff like promotions and all that kind of fun, like those are good moments, right? And I will tell you, I was on a call where we announced a whole bunch of these promotions, and I was so overwhelmed with joy. And again, I feel like I sound like such a cornball, because, it made me so happy. It made me so happy to see so many people that I know are there. I work with the hardest working folks I swear I've ever worked with. And to see us be able to reward them, and if I'm a part of that process and being able to help get us there to a place where we can reward folks for their hard work, it's such a cool feeling.
Interesting you shared that. I was on our climb call recently, and we were talking about Brene Brown, and it's so interesting you say that, because I asked a question to the group. I said, hey, I noticed in the book, Brene Brown basically said to have courage. It was around courage, and it was basically saying that you're courageous when you share two things: gratitude and milestones. And I was like, well, I don't, is that, we're courageous for sharing milestones. And as I thought more about that, I thought about and we talked together as a group. We talked about, some people have that in them. They just like, that's just part of their DNA. They're just grateful, right? Maybe something they've gone through earlier in the life, maybe there's a race, however that is, but the milestones piece, I was like, really? And then it was more about, well, people that typically don't do that because they think, oh, I don't want to brag on myself, or I don't,
Right.
That takes a lot of courage. And here's the thing. People want to share in those stories. People want to celebrate you. And it's almost like anything else. If you don't tell people what you want or what you need, they can't help you. Well, you need to share that because they want to celebrate with you, right?
They do. And I think, Gabrielle, you make such a good point, because I think a part of that sharing, right, is there has to be a level of empathy,
Mm,
right? And so look, I think we've all come across folks where they share a story and they make the conversation about them, right? And then somehow now someone comes to you that they want to have a conversation with you, and then somehow the conversation becomes about themselves. It's like, wait, or they're saying it to you and you make it about yourself. And I think, we all have to be very careful with that, me included, right? I mean, this is something I try to be extremely intentional about, because I'm one of those people that like to share my experiences. I'm an open book, but I do it, and I always hope this comes across, and sometimes I will actually make sure I say it. I'm sharing a story with someone from an empathy, from a level of empathy, extending empathy to them to make sure they understand. Like when I say I get it, like, no, I really get it because I have experienced it.
mm,
And it could be, look, there's a ton of folks that are struggling, right, with anxiety, mental illness, things of that nature, where I think we've made a ton of progress and people are feeling comfortable to talk about it, but I definitely feel like a lot of people are talking about this more, right? And so, if you're in a situation where someone's sharing with you, that geez, I'm getting panic attacks. I've never had them before in my life. And, I will say I'm someone that has had that before, and I had to kind of figure out how to navigate it. And when I share that with some people that have known me for years, they're shocked. They're
mm.
like, wait, I've never noticed that from you before. I'm like, oh yeah, like I've actually done it in front of you. You just didn't know, because I have figured out a way to navigate it. And so when they're talking about their experiences, I can share how I have navigated through it to get through those moments. And I mean, again, it's not to steer the conversation to talk about myself. It's to share, you're gonna be fine. You didn't even know I ever had this, like I had ever experienced anything like that. So
I love that. Oh my gosh. If you're listening right now, you
now I
need to
just shared that with everybody.
get your pen out, get your notebook out. You need to be taking notes here. There is so much, another thing. I mean, we're talking Brene Brown. I mean, she's the master of,
She's
of
fantastic.
vulnerability and all this. But she also shared the importance of empathy versus sympathy. And it's not about saying, "Hey, I feel bad for you." It's like, "Hey, I get it, and I am here to walk with you." And I think people
Yeah.
want that.
I have learned that you're right. I have learned that there are people that do want it. Every once in a while I'll share an experience with someone, and
Yeah.
they'll come back to me and say, would it be okay to set up some time with you to
Mm,
talk about this some more? Because it seems like you really get it. It might be, hey, I've tried to tell this to my, to my spouse. They don't really seem to get what I'm talking about, or I share it with some friends and they don't understand it. And, I don't, they're like, but you seem to get it. So can I talk to you more about it? And really for me, it's a treat, because like you said, Bruce, it's walking with someone,
mm.
and it
You
helps me. It even helps me, think through just how I've done that. And it's a good feeling.
I think that's the key, is that we have to look like, if it helps us, it can help someone else. And
Yes.
I think that's when we know to share. Hey, I want to, last part here, I want to just real quick, I'd love for you to like share, you talked a little bit about collaboration. We're talking empathy right now. These are so, gosh, so important. For someone who's like listening right now and really struggling with some of that, what are some, like, what's something they can do to like focus on right? To be, I don't know, to be better, not necessarily be better in the workplace, just to get to a better place.
It's making those connections, like you said, Bruce. And look, I mean, you are like the master of it. Like, I really, I mean it. I remember even years ago, reconnecting with you, and you walked with me. You walked with me through certain things of how to navigate through certain things, and it's so helpful. I think there's more, there's people that want to have this dialogue and they don't necessarily know how to start it. And so sometimes you just have to be a little vocal, and I know it's scary, and that's part of that courageous piece, right? I think just in general, it's okay to be vocal, sometimes depending on the situation, make sure it's maybe respectfully vocal. You do have to figure out what those connections are. And I think it's hard. I think there's, especially depending on your personality, right? If you are a, introvert, like a natural introvert, it might even be more difficult because you don't know how to even start those conversations. And yeah.
I love that. I will tell you that the word you used there was connection. And I think that you're right on target. It's finding a way to connect. Hey, listen, at the end of the day, you have to take that courageous first step. And that courageous first step is nothing big. It may be smiling. It may be just smiling at someone and saying, "Hey, how are you doing?" And, trying to find that connection so you can have that conversation.
Yeah,
Right.
you're so right. I am doing it constantly. If I am, even when I'm working from my down in Florida, and I'm walking around my mom's neighborhood or something, the amount of conversations I'm having just organically with people has drastically increased. I think people are, first of all, I think people are just craving for, face-to-face interaction, and not just, in a Zoom screen, right? I mean, it's great to see you, right? I'd love to see you, three-dimensionally. And it's amazing, like even just having those types of conversations, the stuff you'll end up learning, next thing you know, you're connecting with them, and you've gotten invited, to their book club. I mean, which was like a real, yeah, that actually happened. So
I love that.
it's funny, sometimes, I mean, I've even shared with my own mom, like, there's a lot of people in this neighborhood, and I feel like at this point I've talked to more of them than you. Like, you need to get out and get to know some of the folks in your neighborhood. They're really nice.
So I'm going to throw this last thing out here, and that is this. But you don't have to force it, because there's some that you have to
Yeah.
give like you're talking about giving people grace. Sometimes you have to give yourself grace too, right? Because there's sometimes where, when you look at me out networking, you think, oh, Bruce, he's an extrovert. When I'm home, I want to be home. And a lot of times I may not feel like walking down the street and talking to someone.
Yeah.
And, and that, so sometimes you just kind of let that happen. But when you do run in those opportunities, stop and take advantage of it.
Yeah, you're spot on, Bruce, because I've had people say that to me. They all, I've had folks say to me, or their assumption is I have a ton of friends. Like, I must just be nonstop, on the weekend, spending time with friends, and they just assume I have this giant circle of friends just because how they see me, right? But I'm like you, once I'm home, I'm home.
I'm
Like,
home.
I'm good. I'm good.
I
Let me pull out one of the 88 books that are sitting there waiting for me.
Let me just tell you, I'm so glad that you found that HR coordinator role, because you're helping people just by this conversation here. Hey, as we talk about home, I want to just ask you real quick about, we talk about leadership being every day. Do you have a daily discipline or something you do every day that helps you keep on track as a leader? Because I always like to, if we can pull one thing out to give somebody, maybe somebody's listening right now looking for that one thing that they can try doing. Anything you do in particular?
I don't know if it's so much of a leadership thing. I am very old school. I mean, right, I have to have a book, tangible book. I always have a highlighter nearby. I got color pens. I'm really, I know I feel like I'm working for Office Depot or Office Max right now. And I write everything out. I do. I mean, notebook. This is embarrassing to admit. I even draw the boxes for like a to-do, right? Of like the things I have to do this week type of thing. Because I get a lot of satisfaction of being able to check the box off. I am fully aware, right, that I happen to use Outlook. I can do this in Outlook. There's a ton of software it does it for me. I like writing it out,
Love that.
It definitely helps me. And one thing I will say that also has been a recent revelation. I think everyone is in the mode of multitasking, right? I think we were all multitaskers before, and we have become master multitaskers. And everyone can read the research out there, right? That you think you're being ultra productive by multitasking, and then you're really not. And trust me, I'm one of those people that have read these articles and like, I don't know. I mean, I was on a call and I was able to still get out 3 emails, and I answered like 18 instant messages. So I don't know. I feel like I'm being very productive, right? I will tell you something I learned recently was, it's okay. You can try to multitask and, let's say, listen to podcasts and town halls and whatever you have going on, and try to multitask. But I learned how important it is for me to stop multitasking. And recently I learned that unfortunately I missed an event that we had going on in our company. I was traveling at the time. I was in the air. It wouldn't let me stream in 35,000 feet in the air. I tried, it wouldn't let me. And so it was really interesting. So I waited for the recording, because we record it. And what I did was I listened to it while I went walking that night. I went walking that night and I listened to it. And I was absolutely amazed how much more I listened and retained, like really retained it, like to a point, the next morning after listening to it, there were so many things I threw out from this meeting, from this town hall that we had, that, I realized, like, holy moly, it's amazing how much more I'm retaining when I'm not multitasking. Like, when the only other thing I had to worry about is putting one foot in front of the other so I don't trip, trip over anything. Other than that, so I'm going to use that. Like, going forward, I will continue to, have stuff. And if I'm multitasking, I'm going to listen to it. I'm making a commitment. I will listen to it without anything else going on in the background, because it works for me anyway. I'll just speak for myself. So
that's fantastic. Oh my gosh, that is so good. Okay, so man, okay, first of all, that's great advice. But I do want to end with that. Do you have any other advice? Any advice that you were like, I don't know, maybe your mom or your dad or a colleague early in your career, or someone today? Any advice someone has given you that it's just so good, you just find yourself giving it to others?
Yeah, and actually, it's funny. Recently, I made a comment on LinkedIn with that, and I use it all the time. All the time, I use it in my personal life. I use it in my work life, and it's to ask the question: are you running away from something, or are you running towards something? And for me, it's the best question. It captures. I mean, it really kind of captures what you're looking for, right? People that are making career changes, and you need to stop and think: are you running away from something? Are you running towards something? And it's, like I said, I mean, when you really think through, it's amazing how many times you can apply that. And I'm constantly using it. I'm constantly sharing it. And so I learned that from someone I worked with.
So everybody listening right now, I have chills right now from the way not just the question, but the way you shared that. That
Oh,
is chilling. That is so good. Listen, we could talk for hours,
I
hours and
know.
hours and hours. But it's time to pivot, and we're going to pivot to it's time to accelerate. I know I heard you earlier talking about listening, but I do like to ask the question: would you rather read a book or listen to a podcast?
I'll always listen to your podcast, Bruce.
You are the best.
I have to say book. I'm
Yeah,
not I don't read books electronic. I
yeah,
don't have a Kindle. I have to have a book
yeah.
in hand, tangible.
Well, of course, you got those highlighters and all that stock in,
I do.
Office Depot, and
Got books and
I love it. Any favorites? Any favorite books?
so I'll tell you one I'm reading right now. Hang on one sec. I know it's right here. I'll keep it nearby. I'm reading a book called Rise.
Hmm.
The author is Patty Azzarello. It's really really good. It the gist of what I'm really getting out of it is we all have a tactical part of what we do, right? And you're always going to have a tactical part, but like where are you spending your time, and so that way you can also make a greater impact. And it's great, I mean, I have, like I know I said about having a checklist and stuff, like those are my tactical, my tactical items. But you put that aside, that's great, you can check those things off, but at the end of the day, like, did you actually move the needle?
Mm.
And what's the priority? You need to focus on what is the priority that has to get done? Like, this is a non-negotiable, like this must get done. So it's good. I'm enjoying it. I was actually going to recommend it to you for a client.
I love it. I will put the information in the show notes so anybody that's listening, they can also click on it too. And I'm going to be buying it now so we can have some conversation and connect on that. Okay, so what are you grateful for?
I'm grateful. I look, my mom, her health, health, right? My health, her health, wanting everyone to be healthy. From a work standpoint, I have the best colleagues ever. I know I try to share that with them. I tell them that. I really do. Like, I have a couple of counterparts. I've worked with them the whole time at Pros. And, normally, after a certain period of time, I mean, there's stuff that, things that'll get on each other's nerves. For me, doesn't happen. So I'm so grateful. They have my back. If something's going on, they'll tell me, like, put your out of office on, I'll cover for you. It's still a work in progress for me to let go and let them do it, like, help me.
That's
So
special.
I'm really grateful for the folks I work with.
Yeah, that's special. That is so awesome. When you find people that not only you work with, but you call them friends. I mean, you're
Yeah,
friends.
for sure.
And
They're not
that's,
just colleagues or friends. No.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, that's when you find, the joy. By the way, I've heard you use joy many times, which is joyful to me. And so that makes me feel good. Hey, obviously, we were working remote, and, some people are back, but we're kind of navigating through this pandemic. What are you most excited for in 2021? Anything you're looking forward to?
I think just what everyone's waiting for, right, is the to get a little more normalized again, whatever that looks like, right? And I feel like the beginning of 2021 has been a little bit of a carryover from 2020. It wasn't exactly like January 1st, 2021. It's like, poof, 2020 is gone and everything's all good again. Not quite the case. So just, I think continuing to see what happens and be a part of any kind of change that comes out of it, and
Yeah.
trying to go with the flow as much as possible, like everybody else.
I'm ready for some high fives. I'm definitely
Yeah,
ready to come and give you a high five and
I
just, oh
know.
my
For
gosh.
me, I'm like such a hugger. I'm gonna have to, like, just remember when I start seeing people, like, don't just
Don't
bum rush them and give them a
stop.
hug. Like, I just want to hug everybody now.
Oh my gosh. What are you running
Maybe
towards?
you're right.
What are you
I'll
running
stick to
towards?
a high five is safer.
Yeah.
Probably.
Or the question, what are you running towards? I'm running to hug somebody.
Running toward hugging everyone and high fiving them.
That's fantastic. Oh my gosh. Okay. I think I heard you use the word energize earlier, but I'm going to ask you what energizes you?
I think it's that bringing resolution to stuff, especially now.
That's what
especially now. I really thrive on that. I truly do.
I love that.
When I have a great call with someone, if I felt like I helped them through something, I helped resolve something, that will carry, that carries me, that definitely carries me through.
Love
for sure.
that. Love that. Oh my God. Okay. So we're down to the final question, Kim. And here it is. So Kim, 10 years older, she's knocking at your front door and you're going to go answer that door. What is she going to tell you?
I know it's not about working less. It's probably working, making sure we're working smarter. But I feel like, especially HR, we put everyone first. I think a lot of times we put everyone in front of ourselves because that's what we do. People pleaser. I want to please everyone. I need to remember, I probably need to tell, the 10 year from now, Kim, it's crazy that this many years into my career, I still strive to make everyone happy. And I know that that's not a reality. You can't, right? That's an impossible goal. So it's not a SMART goal. Making everyone happy would not be considered a SMART goal.
Specific, measurable. Yeah, right.
Yeah. I'm probably, you won't succeed in making everyone happy. So try not, it's not about like trying not to make everyone happy. I think it's more of just accept that you won't always be able to make everyone happy. Yeah. Not everyone's going to like the answer you give them, or, so I think it's probably, while we're all extending grace, we're trying to extend grace to everyone else, extend, yourself, myself, some grace, when it comes to something like that.
I love that. Oh my gosh.
Getting deep here, Bruce, getting deep.
I think that one of the things that I think we should all stress is we need to extend grace to ourselves. And we talked about that earlier. It's just so important. So, oh my gosh, listen, here's what I love. You're authentic and you love what you do. And for that, I say, I'm so thankful for you to like coming on this show today. So if someone wanted to connect with you, how would be the best way to connect?
I would say LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I'm constantly on LinkedIn. I think I probably need to be more active on posting and things like that on LinkedIn. But if anyone wants to reach me, I would say reach me on LinkedIn. As far as other social media, I'm not super active, except for following New England sports teams.
I love that. Well, here's what I know. You're driving in the leadership lane. I have watched you during your career for a long time. You are an incredible leader. You are making things happen. I'm so proud of you. And again, I appreciate you coming on today. I know that some of the things you talked about, you talked earlier about, you never know when people say something or do something, you never know how it might make them feel. I am confident. You said some things today that there's some listeners out there. It's really going to help. So for that, I say thank you. And most importantly, I appreciate your friendship.
Oh, same here, Bruce. I do. I wouldn't trade it for the world. Seriously.
Oh my gosh. I cannot wait.
Thank you so much for having me do this. This was really awesome for me too.
Oh, you're welcome. I told you this time would fly. I can't wait to share this. I'll talk to you later.